We got a battle of a couple 2-0 teams as the Houston Texans travel to Minnesota to face the Vikings. And the matchup everyone wants to see, C.J. Stroud, Texans, franchise quarterback, the electric second-year player, going up against maybe the most imposing defense in the NFL right now, at least for opposing quarterbacks, with what Brian Flores has done through 2 weeks, holding some offenses to some rough-looking numbers, as we'll see here. 6.5 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, a 70.7 passer rating so far allowed by this Vikings defense, and they faced a tough 49ers offense this past week and took it to them. But C.J. Stroud, he doesn't give you a lot of balls. In his career so far, 695 dropbacks. He's only thrown 5 total picks. Hasn't thrown one yet this season. B-Mac, who do we see coming out on top here, and what do you think of Brian Flores' defense and what they're going to throw at this young QB?
You know what? Who would have thought back in July that Week 3 Minnesota hosting Houston would be one of the primetime games between 2 undefeated teams, right? Many felt like Houston could be an undefeated team, but no one saw Minnesota doing what they've been able to do, especially beating San Francisco last week. I still like Houston. I think this is going to be a very, very, huge litmus test for them because of the defense and the pressure that B-Flow brings from that side. But I love Houston when it comes to the quarterback play, and especially if Joe Mixon is in the lineup. Now, we don't know exactly his status, but when he is there, he adds another dimension to their offense, something that they didn't have the luxury of having a year ago. He's a closer. He's a guy that can solidify your 4-minute offense. But when you look at Minnesota, they're going to have success against Houston's offense. And the thing that makes their success happen so frequently is their ability to have movement on their defense. When you watch Minnesota play, especially if you watch them in 2 ball games this season, it feels like they have 15 guys on the football field when they play defense because B-Flow has everyone moving around. The defenders on the line of scrimmage, the backers, the guys in the secondary. It's hard to pinpoint what they're doing and where they're bringing pressure from because everyone is moving around. Everyone is like dancing around the football field, and they got to make offensive linemen decide who is coming, who is hot. They got to make the quarterbacks make the sound reads when he's checking to audibles or hot reads and things like that. And it's been so effective, and he's very, very aggressive, only allowing 11 points per ball game, right? In 2 games, they have 11 sacks. That's first in the National Football League. They're top 10 in rushing yards allowed as well. In third down, they've been phenomenal, only allowing 33% of third down completions when it comes to that element. So this is a defense that's clicking on all cylinders. And there in Minnesota, this is going to be like a playoff game for them. But I'm siding with the Houston Texans, but I'm really, really hyped to see how C.J. Stroud is going to handle the type of pressure he's going to see from Brian Flores.
To me, I feel like it was a great job by you explaining some of the things that you'll be seeing on that line of scrimmage, on that defense for B-Flow's defensive linebackers and secondary. I mean, shoot, we saw Harrison Smith down on the end of the line of scrimmage against Daniel Jones early in the season. These guys are coming from everywhere. And I'm not just talking about a +1 at the line of scrimmage. It's not 4 down linemen plus 1 walk-up linebacker. I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7, even 8 guys at the line of scrimmage. So, to your point about the offensive line, we have to communicate. We have to figure out who's on squeeze responsibilities. Are we fanning out to Harrison Smith? Because he's a known rusher. When he's at the line of scrimmage, he can go hit your quarterback. He knows how to get home. That is the confusion that makes things look a little disjointed for some of these teams playing against the Minnesota Vikings. I think C.J. Stroud is the perfect guy for this job, though. He is cool. He is collected. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, to your point. When things look sketchy, he dirts it. He throws it away. He understands that sometimes an incompletion is better than making those big mistakes. That's why I like C.J. Stroud. I think it'll be tough to keep up this kind of performance 3 weeks in a row, particularly against this group. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans here. Even without Joe Mixon. I love their receiver room, and I love their quarterback, C.J. Stroud.
I think there's an interesting storyline here in that there's a ton of familiarity between these two teams in that, Stephon Diggs with the Houston Texans obviously started his career with the Minnesota Vikings. Danielle Hunter just goes from the Vikings,
Grenard,
where he spent his entire career, to the Texans. Grenard goes from the Texans, where he spent his entire career, to the Vikings this offseason. But the one guy that no one really talks about in all those, I think maybe the most impactful in this game, Blake Cashman, last year, breakout season for the Houston Texans, signs a big deal with the Minnesota Vikings.
He's been balling.
He might be their best defensive player, or the most crucial to what they do now defensively, because his speed at the second level, he was a 4-5 guy coming out, and his instincts He got his hands on 3 passes a week ago. He's huge in being able to get right on the line of scrimmage and then be able to cover 20-plus yards down the field as that back middle in a Tampa 2 or whatever it is that they need him to do. He can cover a ton of ground. And so this Vikings defense, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. The biggest thing, I think, for the Texans' perspective, is Joe Mixon going to be able to play? If he plays, I think they win. If he can't play, I don't think they will, because you saw a week ago the 49ers kind of had what they wanted on the ground against this Vikings team. But then once they asked Brock Purdy to drop back on 3rd downs and whatnot, that's when things went south. So I think you can run on the Vikings. I'm not sure you're going to be able to pass effectively.
3rd down, you're going to get these guys, Skull, and it's going to be 3rd and 11. You're not going to be able to hear anything. There's going to be 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. Me and Mike can't even talk to each other pre-snap. Next thing you know, boom, your quarterback's hit. I hate that. It's not a good place to be as an offense.
I do hate the school. It's an amazing chant if you're a Vikings fan, but everyone else cannot stand it. It's kind of like the Tomahawk Chop for the Florida State's alums.
That one's sweet. Tomahawk Chop is sweet.
I mean, okay. But if for everyone in the building that's not a Florida State
I think
fan,
everybody kind of likes the Tomahawk Chop. I think everybody kind of likes it. Maybe not as not as many Skull fans.